should be. We're live. We are live. Perfect. So we'll wait a few minutes for people to come in. I'll do some housekeeping items as well in terms of the platform. So for everyone who's joining in right now, we've got a poll section on the bottom right-hand corner, as well as questions that you'll be able to ask. We will answer them closer to the end of the webinar, just so that we don't interrupt the flow. And of course, a little chat bubble. And if you want to kind of share where you're from, where you're tuning in, feel free to message there and share where you're calling in from. So a little description about the event. Main thing is, how do you manage 300 plus short-term rental listings and stay true to high luxury standards, as well as a premium guest experience? So that's kind of the main question that we're going to look into today. The challenge is obviously very real. As the number of listings increases, so do the complexities and the demands. And we actually see an inverse correlation between the quality of the guest experience, the ratings, the reviews, and the number of listings. So the more listings you have, unfortunately, not as good of a guest experience, not as good of ratings. The less listings you have more chances of becoming a super host on Airbnb and things like that. So we want to really share some experiences from GoodNight Stay, bring on as well Streamline, another tech partner that GoodNight Stay is using to explain a bit more about this. We'll dive into how they manage a high volume of properties while ensuring that premium guest experience. And Daemion will talk about building those robust systems for high-end guest experiences with, of course, Streamline. Enso is a part of the solution, but we're not here to sell you. We're here to share their experience. During the session, you'll learn how to build processes to cater to high guest expectations in a large short-term rental business. Hear advice about how to increase your team's efficiency with technology without sacrificing that personal touch. Discover some tech solution and software that GoodNight Stays is using to optimize their guest management process, but their overall company as well. And of course, network with some like-minded STR business professionals. So feel free to answer these little pop-ups that come in whenever you can. This is always helpful for us to get more data. To start off, why are we talking about premium guest experience at scale? Well, because it's very, very difficult to accomplish. And so we're going to be here to help you empower your team to grow by learning with Daemion and Kyle. To start off, what is GoodNight Premium Stays and what is your role in the company, Daemion? Do you want to share a bit more about the story behind GNS?
I'd love to. Our founder, Scott Graydon, started off small with one or two short-term rentals right around 2002, 2003 in Scottsdale. He did well. There was a new platform called Airbnb, and one house turned into 5, turned into 10. And the purposeful incremental growth that he shared with the industry kind of positioned GoodNight Stay now not as an industry participant, but rather as the industry standard. And his unwavering commitment to quality for both homeowners and guests gives his team that he's personally selected an advantage and a philosophy of success-driven principles to guide their and our workday by. I am the director of operations, and my primary role is simply to support the team in any way I can. And there are, obvious asset allocation process reviews that I need to do to evolve, but support is really the main portion of my day, from the top sales team to today. I'm actually in our Nashville office working with the laundry team and the warehouse team.
Amazing. And it seems like a big focus on efficiency, which we'll dive into as well, not growth at all costs, which I think is what poised GoodNight Stay to really be a standard of premium vacation rental management out there. Kyle, software consulting director at Streamline and Habit. What is Streamline? What is your role? Tell us more about this beast of a property management system.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I've been at Streamline for just over 8 years now, and we've been on a pretty awesome ride. When I started, the Streamline company is almost 20 years old next year. When I started, we had a handful of companies, just like Scott, started small, and we've been scaling since. My role has generally been in sales, but I think it's kind of common in a lot of property management companies. A lot of people wear a lot of hats. Very similar over here, where we're talking the product team very often, trying to make our software and our business scale. If we're thinking about two things, I think our software helps you maximize your efficiency and maximize your revenue. So if we're thinking about things to build, those are the things we want to focus on. So yeah, it's been a great ride. Happy to be here. I met Scott back in 2019, I think it is. And you guys were already a pretty big company, over 100 units, but now you guys have 400 units. So it's been a great ride together, really.
100%. Yeah, I think I met Scott 2 years ago through an advisor who was like, "Oh, you should speak with this company." Totally forgot about GoodNight Stay as we went live with Streamline, and then you guys reached out to me. Perfect timing as we just had gone live with Streamline. So it's good to connect this way. So we're going to talk a bit more about a 5-star guest experience at scale. Again, that topic of you've got 5 listings, you can manage it with or without a team, you can handle it. What happens when you have 400 listings, right? And how do you scale that team and so on? So what is GoodNight Premium Stays' unique approach to guest experience and maximizing the revenue for your customers?
Well, it's really a balancing act, and every day is new. Every day is new for new properties that we bring on. Every day is new for the field staff and the housekeepers. But when we keep into perspective that every trip is new, whether it's a business trip or somebody's vacation, and these days, it could be the vacation of the year that a family is saving for. We need to make sure that our blue collar work ethic stays central and that we're balancing it. Probably the most important thing that we can point to is that if you call us, a human being answers the phone, and that's not industry wide.
That's fair. That's fair. We are going to talk about how technology does play a role in making it efficient, because 400 units, you don't have 400 people answering phones, obviously, but yet you're still able to create that personal touch. So what was your company's growth and journey? Share a bit more maybe about like that founding story to the 400 units, and how did the approach to guest experience change throughout the growth?
Well, there's been a commitment to incremental on purpose. And if you've been in short-term rentals for any measure of time, you can see that some companies get too big too fast. And there becomes a lack of ability to manage expectations for both owners and their guests. So Scott's incremental on purpose growth projection is always about, a lack of knee-jerk reactions and trying to limit the umbrella fixes. Each property is individual. Each guest is new. It's kind of like running a hotel in 200 different locations in Arizona or 300 locations in Nashville, wherever you are. Every hotel room is different, and every guest experience and expectation is different.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what makes the vacation rental business so unique and also very challenging, both from a technology and management perspective, because of how different all the inventory is, the guests, the owners, and so on, and managing all of these different expectations. It's funny because when I speak to hotel partners, the challenges they face seem less critical, I want to say, as the vacation rental operators, and more branded, more like branding issues that they want to focus on, than less operational, because it's one building, it's all the same, it's easy, versus vacation rental where it's all fragmented. And how do you structure and prioritize those tasks to ensure that things run smoothly? So, you've grown from 100 plus units to 400 units. Obviously, you get challenges along the way. You, as the director of operations, how have you helped the team structure the different tasks and prioritize that efficient growth?
Listen, it's process review and self-awareness. And I'm proud that I'm surrounded by the best department heads in the business. We have the greatest people around each other that you could possibly imagine. I think that I've gotten to a point with them where they hold themselves accountable long before I need to be involved. So when you have professionals that understand the final outcome and that have the success-driven principles that Scott's given us to try new things, even make a mistake or two. It allows them to be the best that they can be.
Makes sense.
I don't know that there's a more simple answer than that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And to give people an idea of that structure in the team, like what does the team look like? Is it mainly in-house? You guys have VAs in the Philippines? Is it a mix match? How does that organization work, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, we use, and I'll touch on this a little bit when we talk about how tech enhances our productivity, but we use things like Enso and different platforms to be able to, and the analytics to be able to schedule properly, and give each property the attention that it needs. But we have a great mix of field personnel that touch the homes, housekeeping. If you've got one home or one unit or 1,000, housekeeping is always going to be a central issue, and maintenance partners that are phenomenal.
I like what you said about the accountability piece. In another life, I worked at JW Marriott, which is one of their nicest brands. And one thing that they taught us in training is that everyone is accountable for everything. So the GM of Marriott could be walking around picking up trash if there's trash, because he's accountable for that. Guests or housekeepers and anyone involved are accountable for guests' happiness and overcoming, if there is something wrong. So I like that you said that. Accountability, I think, is huge for everyone. The accountability of the common goal is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
100%. It gives that sense of ownership, I think, as well, to everyone on the team that, you have an objective to reach, or you have a goal in mind or a vision in mind, and we're all in this together, even though our roles might be in a specific vertical. If you need a helping hand, you have one. So I love that. And so looking a bit more into, the guest journey itself, and we're going to talk a bit again about scaling the business and so on. But in your opinion, what are the top areas or stages in the guest journey that have the greatest impact on both the experience and revenue, and areas that GoodNight Stay has decided to focus on? And I'll get to Kyle as well on this one. Just I want to get the Streamline perspective on the guest journey. But Daemion, what are those different areas or stages that have had the greatest impact?
I think that pre-arrival is the absolute key. Post-checkout is becoming crucial to manage reviews, especially as guest knowledge of how to, what I say is play the game, is evolving, and how, a guest can kind of hold us hostage with retaliatory reviews. But I'll still say that pre-arrival is the key. And that comes from owner expectations and guest expectations. Our marketing department is amazing in what they do. Day in, day out, I'll put our marketing department up against anybody in the world. And I tell them that every day. When we can give the guest as much information as they can handle before they get on the plane, before they get in the car, when they can know that they already have, or they will get a code at a certain time, or they can, get pool heat or spa heat, or get an early check-in or a late checkout and add a dog, whatever we can offer to add value to their stay. If it's a business trip, if they, need ideas for lunch or dinner, whatever it is, if we can get that to them before they even start their journey, it puts us in a much better situation. And reviews, I love what you said about the reviews, and how they affect us. Everybody wants the great reviews, and it's getting more and more difficult to manage them from a reality standpoint. And there are YouTube channels that show people how to manage their complaints in a way that, that they can ask for everything for free all the time. And that's huge. That's what we're up against.
We're, I think, in a culture of, and this was opened by like the Uber Eats of the world that were funneled by, fueled by venture capital, to basically say, oh, they complain. Yeah, it's fine. Refund them. And that's created a sense of entitlement, I think, for a lot of guests. And I see it myself in the way they communicate with property managers, forgetting that it's not a robot behind the scenes. It's a human being. And, some people are being a bit unreasonable. But I think what you said about setting the right expectations at the start of the guest experience just maximizes or reduces that potential negative impact on the review side of things. Ultimately, there's always going to be people who fall through the cracks. But what can you say? That's what happens when you're managing tens of thousands of guests. You can't get them all perfect, but I know you guys strive for that. And Kyle, what in terms of Streamline have you seen have a greatest impact on the guest journey? And obviously, you guys handle not just the moment the booking is confirmed, but also as people are coming in on the inquiry side. So, what have you seen work best?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different options in Streamline, and even expanding that to partnerships like with you guys, right? And a lot of times I think companies like Goodnight Stay and whoever else might be listening with a tech stack that might have overlap with certain features. I just think it's really important to review the guest, timeline as far as what you're communicating to them and when, and sort of adjusting as needed. If your team's getting the same sort of arrival question over and over, answer that question before they ask it, right? And I agree with Daemion in that the pre-arrival is most important. I see so many companies writing an absolute book of paragraphs and instructions, and then they're wondering why the guests aren't reading it. So things like, the day of check-in, a simple text of the door code and the Wi-Fi password, and that's the text. Or the day after check-in, hey, just wanted to make sure everything's going well. Let me know if you guys need anything at all. Automated, of course, but that's a great way just to get them talking to you in case they are frowning, and turn that frown upside down, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, pre-stay, in another life also, I should have said this in my introduction, but I manage large, luxury vacation rentals, and pre-stay was huge from an upsell perspective as well. So if I can understand what they're doing in town, they're happy to let me pay, plan out their whole trip and, do grocery stocking services, or, make them tea times. Anything they wanted me to do from a luxury perspective, I could.
Yeah. I think getting the information about that at scale is what's interesting. So how do you collect the data so that you can start building processes to create that recursive approach, where I don't know if it was Daemion or Kyle, one of you, who said, you get that same question over and over again. Maybe you should do something about it. I think it was you, Kyle. But I know you guys probably face that issue, Daemion, where you get someone asking, how can I park? How can I park? And eventually it's like, well, let's build a parking guidebook, right? So that next time someone books this property, they know exactly where to park. So creating that feedback loop as you progress through the business will also help alleviate things and make you more efficient. And, when you take that approach, I think it creates the balance between growth at all costs and efficient growth. And 2-3 years ago, I think it was growth at all costs, get as many listings as you can from many property managers out there. Now that ADRs may have gone down a bit, or occupancy rates have gone down a bit, a lot of these unprofessional property managers are losing the game, and all the ones who had good foundations are winning longer term. So something to consider as you are scaling your property management business. Now, problems you face with the guest experience, obviously it can happen, and we're going to look at how we address these things, missed requests, poor prioritization of certain urgent issues, or, providing other situations from your experience here, as the mediator between property managers and guests in Goodnight Premium Stays. What common mistakes have you observed that have negatively impacted guest experience and incurred financial losses in the past? And how have you, obviously recovered from that or stepped up from preventing those types of issues? We've got to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly sometimes. I
was kind of hoping that my battery would die and I wouldn't be here for this portion of it. This is where the whole team, Kyle was talking about, a GM picking up trash. This is where the whole team comes together to identify the challenges. If we're in Arizona and there's a big storm and there's leaves in the pool, that can be missed, and a guest can have an expectation that even though they were awakened by a crazy storm, they won't put two and two together to understand that the leaves have not been there for more than 2 or 3 hours, and we can try to get a pool company out. But it's one-on-one communication with actual phone calls and actually talking to people that really bridge the gap. We can text them. Enso has a fantastic platform for that. But when somebody's upset because expectations haven't been properly managed, then it's person to person with an actual phone call that is the only way. People will use any excuse to have a compensation case open for themselves, and describing what it is that we can and can't do usually helps a lot. We don't win every one, but we certainly do try. But a lot of the challenges are born from the guest not actually reading the description of the home or the unit. And we have to go back and show them this is what you read. This is what you booked. This is where it is. This is what's available. This is what's not available. And just, frank, common sense conversations that, sometimes really shouldn't be necessary, but are.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, when you have a property on a distribution platform, you're selling, right? You're selling the property. So you're showing the best images. You're not showing the image with the pool and the leaves in it. And yes, it can happen that there's leaves in a pool. If you had to show a picture of every iteration of what the pool looks like from night to leaves and everything, then it just wouldn't be the best sales ad ever. So I do like that answer. And Kyle, maybe you can add to that as well. What, from your experience, have you seen, that common mistakes that property managers have made that have sort of negatively impacted that guest experience? And what have you suggested, through the use of Streamline, for example, that they can achieve to recoup potential financial losses or just avoid these kinds of negative experiences?
Yeah, I have two things, and honestly, none of them have to do with Streamline.
But
Go
for it.
What I think is important is, Daemon's mentioning you have to sort of pick up the phone and call. And a lot of times it's just not easy to deal with someone that's upset. So honestly, having some sort of training on your team to things you need to say, things you need to do. And the other thing is, at scale, I know a company that separates the financial conversation from whatever the issue is. So yeah, there's leaves in the pool. I'm calling you about it. We're going to get a pool guy over. I'm sorry. Well, I need a free night. I can't even do that. That's not up to me. I can send you over to the financial services team and have that discussion. And it just sort of separates it so that it doesn't put that person that you're talking to in a bind of, oh, well, I got a free night. How about this? How about that? And then it just turns into a butterfly, a snowball effect.
Yeah. And I guess there's also that barrier of entry where it's like, oh, damn it, I got on a phone call now with a different person, start all over again, explain it. Is it really worth it? So you're creating a tiny friction to avoid, like, the ones who actually do deserve a compensation will go through it. And the ones who are just trying to scratch a couple extra bucks from their stay might not have the patience to go through that. I think that's a really smart way to, if anything, I would recommend property managers, even if they're a bit smaller and don't have the team size to split the event, to just turn around and just be like, yep, now you're speaking to the financial rep. Just change up your voice so that it's a different team member here. That makes sense. Any other items that you've seen like negatively affect the guest experience, or things that property managers can learn from?
Yeah, like Tom said earlier, scaling too fast. I've also met those companies where, before they know it, they're over 100 properties within months, and there's just no, like, GoodNight Stays is just absolute professionals at being organized and ready for that growth. I think that's vital to just not grow too fast, because once the Band-Aid's ripped off, you can't put it back, and trying to figure it out once you're there is really, really hard.
100%. So let's talk about tech. And obviously we don't want to make this a sales pitch. As you guys know from the webinar, GoodNight Stay is using Enso Connect, is using Streamline. We want to explain a bit more the experience of serving thousands of guests and how technology has helped improve that guest experience, because phone calls with 400 plus properties and all the different guests that are coming through the door, you can't check them in all in person. You can't, be on the phone with every single one of your guests to explain how to go through the doors and so on. So how, from your experience of serving those guests, how does technology help improve the guest experience?
So for us, we have both sides of the experience. We have the guest side and our internal side. For internal, tech enhances our productivity. It broadens our reach with information and available resources to help ourselves and help our team. And we have to be very careful to not over tech. One of the greatest quotes that I've heard in the last year is, I've never received a tech package that can clean a home or paint a wall. And then actually Kyle said it a couple minutes ago, a tech package can't reach out and talk an angry guest or an angry owner off the ledge. So to overload is not as good as incremental. It's actually counterintuitive to overload, and you can get analysis paralysis. Tech on the guest experience side, however, is fantastic, and we end up putting many of the time-consuming decisions in the hand of the guest. So if we don't need a customer support representative to stay on the phone or keep texting a guest about their dietary restrictions and where they can find the restaurant, it's even better. And especially the issues that come up again and again for the same properties, where to park, how, what time do I have to turn down the TV or the music, is the community pool available? All those questions, and I'll say Streamline, it streamlines the process for them, but it also gets them a feeling of comfort as though they're in control. And, here I'll plug Enso. Enso has given us the opportunity to really give as much information to the guest pre-check-in as possible.
That's fair. It goes back to what you were saying beforehand, right? If you can cover up or solidify the entire pre-arrival experience, you're reducing all the heartaches and so on that are going to happen during the stay, because you've set the right expectation for the guests on what they can have for their stay.
Definitely.
100%. And Kyle, do you want to share a bit more as well about improving the guest experience, maybe in your property management business, maybe as well in the context of Streamline?
Sure. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. We have our own very smaller version of Enso Connect and Happy Stays inside of Streamline, but you guys do it at another scale and level. I agree. Just putting the most information about, that area in town. So for example, my wife and I are straight up foodies. We do not want to go visit a chain restaurant or even a place that we found on Google. And, I physically am in Phoenix, Arizona. The best Mexican food in town is a sort of hole in the wall in the corner that you would never walk into because of the sign or anything like that. And the best experiences, I think, come from the local flair of telling us what to do and when, and go see, live music here, or go golf here, or go shop there, whatever it might be. I just think it's vital that you guys, whoever gets the guests that info in their hands as easy as possible.
For sure. I'm also a big foodie. I had a Instagram food thing. I kind of haven't been keeping it up, but I still cook every other day, every other week. And when I travel to these random conferences like VRMA in New Orleans, all I'm checking is where can I find the coolest, most unique spot to eat.
Yeah.
And it comes from the property managers, the people who know the area. So I think there's a balance, and this segues perfectly with the next question, which is, how do we balance technology while maintaining that personal touch? Because you're right, I can just go on Google and look up the top restaurants in the area, but that's not going to give me necessarily the ultimate list that caters to my unique needs. And so how do you balance that technology and that personal touch? What are some steps that property managers can take to be more personal while creating automations? Daemion, Kyle, what do you guys think on that?
For us, it's just a relentless pursuit of standards when we talk to people. Our tech really helps us out, but it's still people. And I tell Scott all the time, I can't deposit percentages into the bank. So we need to recognize that all the information that we get, and I'll jump ahead a little bit, and talk about analytics.
Yeah.
Analytics for us is simply pattern recognition, and it increases what we can and should offer on the operations side. We use it as a scheduling tool, if you will, to be more available to the guests and to the owners. If we know that Wednesday at noon we haven't gotten a call in an hour window in weeks, then we know that, you know, that's a great time for everybody to take lunch, or that's a time to slim the staff down a little bit and gear up for Thursdays and Fridays, which are the large check-in days, or when do we see maintenance being an issue. So as we get the analytics, it's definitely a tool.
Yeah.
Analytics is great, and I only care about a couple of things with analytics, and those are just the who, what, where, when, why, and how, and everything else I don't care about.
That's a lot of questions though behind each of of those, but it does make sense. And for those of you watching that may be using Enso Connect, stay tuned on the dashboard release very, very soon with those analytics, because man, that's been ongoing. I've been promising that for far too long. So stay tuned on that. But and Kyle, what do you see on your end in terms of analytics, but also that sort of maintaining personal touch versus the automation? What have you seen through Streamline or the property management business?
Yeah, I think it's being personal within your automation, if that makes any sense. So I know, and there's always I've mentioned this before, but finding the balance between so GoodNight Stays using Streamline and Enso Connect, there's automations with both platforms.
Yeah. So
that's why I think mapping out the guest experience, or the guest automation journey, I guess, is what we could be talking about, very micro. And just, so in Streamline, it's like X days before check-in, or X days before check-in with a balance, X days before check-in with contract not signed yet. X days before check-in, I would have several. 2 weeks before check-in, call us if you need anything. We can do this, we can do that. And then a week before check-in, don't forget your swimsuit. Like just little things like that to hit them with automation that to me is personal. I think can go a long, long way.
100%. And then measuring the impact of that, right? Sending too many messages versus sending not enough messages. I think that the ability to be able to measure that is what's going to allow you to reiterate. Ultimately, I think this is the beauty of this industry. And one of the reasons I got in, despite there being a science to a lot of things, there's also a sort of art to it that's unique to each property management business. The way you manage properties in Phoenix is going to be completely different than the way you manage properties in Toronto. Partially also because we have regulations in Toronto, so you're probably just going to get fines. But that's a frustrating joke more than anything. In terms of envisioning the future, so we've talked a bit about GoodNight Stays' story and how they've scaled. We've talked a bit about the balance of technology. What do you envision the future of hospitality tech, and how do you think it'll continue to support businesses like yours, other short-term rental businesses, in enhancing the experience, streamlining the operations? Like, where do you see technology going? And this is for both of you, whoever wants
Kyle,
to start.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this first.
Sure. I mean, and technology has been in a wild ride in this industry since I've been in it. And it's going to continue to enhance and develop. So one thing I would just encourage everyone to do is just keep up to date with who's doing what. And there's a million ways to do that. But I'm personally super interested in AI. I mean, AI is everywhere already, but the next generation of AI, like ChatGPT type of stuff. And not from what I'm afraid of is being in front of the guests with that stuff. So if you want AI to chat with your guests, I think that's a terrible idea, personally. But what I think AI can help us do is the data type of stuff. So you can read a bunch of data and be like, hey, none of your guests have replied to this text type of stuff. Or, AI developing a profile on helping us reply to guests. Maybe you should say this, maybe you should say that. Or even a profile on what to, on the guest to, what to, suggest for their stay. All kinds of things AI is going to be able to take in data and then give us really tangible things to be able to use.
100%. And one of the trends we're seeing is the concept of agents and co-pilots. So the idea of you have information across multiple systems, and you could technically manually export this data and put it in another tool that does dashboards like Tableau or something like that. and then plot out your graphs and spend weeks figuring out what information you're looking for, projected over time. Or you can use these large language models to unabstract all of this information and give you insights on this data without having to look at the graph. It could just tell you, well, look, you've been performing as this with upsells. It's been a upward trend or a downward trend for these potential reasons, but only on this segment of guests. So let's do something about that. So I think there's a lot to be said about how AI is being used. I think today it is a buzzword, unfortunately, for a lot of companies, and there's still a lot of smokes and mirrors in terms of how companies use AI, whether it's in messaging. We are, for people who are in the audience, we are launching very soon a mind map or an industry landscape of all the companies out there that are doing AI in the vacation rental space. And we'll also give a bit more of an explanation as to the differences between machine learning and generative AI, because I see a lot of companies coming in saying they do generative AI, but one, there's either no AI at all. It's just basic if this, then that, or they are using AI, but it's not generative AI. So tune in, I think in the next 24 to 48 hours, we're going to launch this big paper on the different companies in this space. Daemion, what do you envision in terms of the future of tech in the space? And, where would you want to see more tech, less tech, and so on?
Well, truly looking forward to the dashboard that you're about to show us. It's because it helps us identify where we need to spend more time and where we need to spend less time. One of the things that we found as an advantage is kind of steering owners so that they can understand the complexities of what's happening in the STR market. 2022 and really the last half of 2021 were ridiculous revenue years for owners. Not something that can continue. Saturation's a real thing, and the market is just different, substantially different. So when we can use tech to simplify what we need to show an owner without having everyone, I don't have a silver tongue to get to every owner, but if I can show an owner a graph and say, this is where you were, this is where the industry is now, we can teach them about ADRs and occupancy and RevPAR, RevPAL, and it helps. It helps me also. And I look at RevMax on Streamline every day. Where are we? How many Tums do I need to chew on today? What's my stress level going to be? And kind of map out what needs to happen. So it's crucial. It's absolutely crucial as we continue to grow and demand success from ourselves.
100%.
Daemion, I think that's a fantastic point, man, because I think what you're sort of talking about is the normalization post-COVID boom. A lot of people even entered the space during the COVID boom, and they're like, this is easy money.
Yeah.
And it's going down from the boom, but we're still in a really healthy place as far as the vacation rental space or industry as a whole. And I think educating the owners on that and then using the data in order to do so is fantastic. Love it.
Yeah. There's no loyalty with owners. So just showing them that this is why GoodNight Stay is the industry standard, not just a participant.
Yeah.
It really helps.
Yeah. Well, I think in the eyes of owners, property management seems to be the same. It's like, well, it's just one company or another. They charge similar rates. Why should I choose one or the other? And I think a company that can demonstrate managing 300, 400 units at scale is one that you can trust your inventory with, versus, and I think actually one of the factors to look into when it comes to owners is like, look at the reviews, look at how guests are raving about their stays, and being happy of how streamlined things are, and you'll know how your property is being taken care of. But with regards to the growth rates of, new entrants in the market, I think that's just the post-COVID boom. Easy, as you mentioned, Kyle, it's easy to get into. Everyone's jumping back in. You've got, the right tailwinds that are pushing the market in the right direction. And it's moving really fast in a short period of time. And now it's normalizing again. So it's not a slowdown. It's a normalization of
Yep.
of the market. I do want to be respectful of time. We are going to, end the webinar in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So we are going to answer a few questions, and I see there's a few out there already. But I do have a few other questions in terms of the biggest challenges you've faced when it came to integrating new technology. Because this is something, I want to say it's even within Enso Connect's goal to make Enso a self-serve onboarding platform. It's something that we strive for. We're not there yet. We're working towards it every single day. But can you share a bit more of the challenges of, deciding which technology to use and how you make that decision, but also the challenges behind setting up those new processes for your team? Because you've obviously got a big team that you have to train, convince. Daemion, could you share a bit more about that experience?
Tech moves fast, and constant training and updating of our SOPs is crucial. Constant vigilance on what's available to us and how to utilize it. I actually think that some of our platforms we are underutilizing to our disadvantage, simply because there's so much going on. I guarantee you, I don't know enough about Streamline, our main platform. I'm probably using it 50% to my ability. And just because there's so much out there, I could spend 2 weeks learning something new every day and still just be scratching the surface. Same with Enso. If you're listening or watching this, I text Francois 3 times a day asking what he probably thinks are the dumbest questions he's ever heard. But I just don't know. I don't know what's available and what the options are. And this week is different than last week.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Streamline is a beast of a property management. You guys do so much in Streamline. You have so many different configurations and capabilities. Maybe Kyle, you can touch to that, not just on the guest experience, but overall, whether it's, revenue distribution, messaging. Can you share a bit more about, that breadth of technology that you guys have built? I mean, I was talking to Carlos a few weeks back, and he was sharing some of the milestones of building out Streamline, and oh my God.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Carlos is the founder of Streamline, and what we say is we're by property managers for property managers, because Carlos was literally a property manager in Rocky Point, Mexico, and there was no software 20 years ago. So he started building it himself, and then the entrepreneurial in him took over. And we're very aggressive with innovation and development. We do a quarterly release on an update, so it is vast. And to echo what Daemion said, that's our challenge at Streamline. I always echo it to like the iPhone, right? You can't just walk out of Streamline using it. Like my new iPhone, I'm using my new iPhone before I walk out of the store. Streamline, you really have to customize to your needs. And we've had to build it that way because, like you said, in every market, there's really not a lot of standardization in how you want to manage cleans. You have 10 units or 300 units or 3,000 units, like some of our clients. That's the challenge, is education on the platform, because I would say that a lot of Streamline customers aren't using Streamline to its greatest capability, but I'm also not using my iPhone to its greatest capability. So you have to lean into it and you have to do it. And then, like Daemion said, to echo that, constant, revisiting it, because tech is changing, the landscape is changing. You can't just set your guest lifeline or communication lifeline and just call it good. We're set for life now. We need to readjust it. Tech is changing as well. Like we've already mentioned, it's really important just to be on top of your game with that, and just block time to learn stuff. And you just have to I know we're all busy. I know we could easily never look at Streamline and still be very busy. So it's just finding the time to do it, because in the end, it's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last question, and then I'll let you guys also maybe ask questions if you want to, because I'm here just interrogating you. But what could you share some information for the people listening and on training the staff specifically? Like, do you guys run monthly meetings? Do you do weekly meetings? Is there a structure to that meeting? Is there someone leading that? At Enso, for example, whenever we have certain new technologies that we bring in for a specific department, whoever is the one who's implementing that technology, who's the one spearheading, is the one having to pitch it and having to share how it's going to work and so on. Daemion and Kyle, how do you guys train your teams? Very broad question.
It's tough. As a smaller company, we don't have a dedicated time where we can pull everyone out. Customer service 24/7. Hourly associates are expensive. So we try to create SOPs and train to specific points. And a lot of that is done one-on-one or in a group of 2 or 3 as the situation's happening.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. And
Yeah,
Kyle, how about
Streamline,
yourself?
it's training the team too internally, but also training our clients as much as possible. So we have our Streamline Summit that we host every year, where the common denominators, they're using Streamline. Enso's there, and everyone's having discussions, and we're diving into the deep dives of the different areas of the software to really unpack what's available. Our software is just customized and customizable in thousands of ways, where you can straight up turn things off and never see them. So you don't know they're there until you ask. And we also do constant webinars and things like that, new releases, here's what it is, here's why we built it, here's who asked for it and why. It's just a constant roller coaster of trying to, at least offer the education. It goes a long way.
100%. 100%. Well, new tech adoption takes time. You got to convince the right stakeholders in the company, the ones that are going to use it, the ones that are going to be judged on it, and of course, everything around it, ROI and so on. And then you have to be able to maximize the actual use of that tool as best as possible. And I think this goes back to what you were saying earlier on, Daemion, of like too much tech is not necessarily the right solution. It's finding what works for your business. This is awesome. I really appreciate you guys, running this webinar with me and sharing some insights to everyone here in the audience. We are going to have a recording of this session, so we'll be able to share it for those who didn't make it. I do want to answer if there's any questions that people have. We do have a hard stop to respect Daemion and Kyle's time here. So if you guys have any questions, now's the best time to start asking them. I already see one right here. I'm going to pop up on the screen, which is, what are some of the ways you promote the boarding pass? Our guests get it in their confirmation email, but I seem to be having problems with them getting back to it for the guidebooks of the pass in general. How do you do it? So one of the things I would recommend is SMS, WhatsApp, depending on the locations that you're in, to push it not just via email. Another item, which is something I want to work on from a design perspective, and stay tuned on what we can do here, but you can actually add the boarding pass to your Apple Wallet. So obviously you're going to ask me what happens if they have an Android, and my response will be go get an iPhone. But all jokes aside, we should work on it for the Google Play Store as well. But you can remind the guests to add it to their Apple Wallet, and then they can get back to it very easily from there. Something we need to work on, making it more user-friendly, the experience of being able to add it to your Apple Wallet, but definitely something we can help here. Richard, I see we have another question from Richard Vaughton. I don't know if you guys know Richard. So I'm going to put it up here. Let's open it up. Francois, having stayed in an apartment using Enso as a guest recently, it clearly saves managers time. Kind of worked well too. Any stats, metrics on the size of savings? Broad question, but I think that's it. ... Okay. Daemion, maybe you want to help answer that question. I know we haven't launched your dashboard yet, so I can't give you exact stats. But what kind of time savings have you guys seen so far?
It's, we're 6-7 weeks into Enso. I can't measure that yet, but what I can measure is how many guests we're able to reach so quickly and so confidently. The SMS, I believe, within a few weeks, we had 44,000 text messages between customer service and guests. Granted, a little bit higher season, but just allowing for that to happen, I know that there is a time savings. I just can't tell you what it is yet.
Yeah, we're launching the dashboard very soon, Richard. What I can say is I think we were at 70 to 75% automation on those segments of SMS. And that's not necessarily using the AI with the predicted responses, which we're measuring with the new dashboard. That being said, in terms of metrics on size of savings, Richard, I'd say our key focuses isn't necessarily saving time, but generating new revenue streams as well for the operators through the different upsells opportunities. a lot of users already have the basic automations, what you'll see is a reduction in questions pre-arrival. That's the biggest time-saving component, is all the pre-arrival, 80% less questions about how am I going to check in. Why? Because they get the big check-in button that says right there, and when they try to tap it because they're cheeky, and I'm sure, Richard, you were part of this, and it prompts them to purchase an early check-in. So more on those stats. I think it depends on each property managers, but I'm excited to launch that dashboard, Daemion, so we can finally measure the more than just the automation ratios. Thanks for joining, Richard. Really appreciate it. Any other questions we have for Kyle, Daemion? So we've got the poll that was up and running, so that's good. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I will buy you guys back some time. Daemion, that gives you enough time for a coffee before your team meeting. Kyle, same thing. And of course, before we leave this, any way for people to reach out to you directly, whether it's Streamline or GoodNight Stay, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, just go to our website. Sorry, Daemion. Go to our website, streamlinevrs.com, and fill out a form if you want someone to reach out. It'll probably be me. And go to streamlinesummit.com if you want to learn more about our event that we'll both be at, Francois.
100%. In Phoenix, the weather's going to be nice. It might be a bit hot. I'll tell you, last time I was there, I was surprised by the number on my phone. I can't tell you what it was in football stadiums because we measure things in Celsius in Canada, but it's not a number that I'd ever expected before. So, but really nice spot at the Phoenician, if I'm not mistaken, right, Kyle?
Yep.
Love it. Love it. And Daemion, how can people reach out to GoodNight Stay, either for getting their home on Premium GoodNight Stays or just understanding a bit more how your business works? What's the best way to reach out?
Yep, goodnightstay.com or 480-562-6226. That puts you right in touch with customer service, and they'll get you anywhere you want to go.
I thought it was your number. I was like, David, I can't do that. Love it. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining in, for sharing all these golden nuggets here. And I'm looking forward to the next webinars.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Cheers. Oh, I have to hit this button.